Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mitch. Well, having a good time? Yeah. Super duper. Hey, so we heard about portable operating with the National Parks program earlier. Now we're going to talk about actually how to set up a station anywhere, whether it's portable, whether it's at your club meeting, or we have a station right next door that we have operating here, even at home or at work. I'm going to talk about some of the generalities, and I believe in being loud. So I'm going to give it my little twist of.
Can you speak up?
Yeah, oh, you want to put the amp on? Yeah, I can do that, sure. I'm going to give a little twist on how to make yourself be loud so that a lot of people can work with you and why you should do this. So where shall we set up? Just let's look at some of the places that we can look at. And this is not an exhaustive list. It's just what I thought about last night, about 2 in the morning, when I wrote this up, in between operating the 160-meter contest. So we can set up at HamCon, which we have a setup here. Although I didn't set that up, I have a committee working on that. Or any convention for that matter. And it's interesting, the New England convention that they do in Boxborough, they didn't have a ham station there. They had a remote setup, and people didn't like it. They complained. They want the hardware. They want the antenna. That's why we haul that big beam out there every time. People want to see the beams. At a club meeting, we have a club meeting usually once a year where we're putting up antennas and setting up a station. At a shopping location, a slot shopping plaza, a mall, in a park, okay, national parks, we're going to do state parks this year, in Vermont, even local parks, and any other public place. And of course, more importantly, at your home or your workplace, setting up a station. Everyone says, how do I set up a station? You throw a wire in the air and you get on the air. But we'll look at some of the details. So the first thing, do your homework. Don't just show up and operate. You've got to get permission if you're going on someone else's property. Even in the national parks, even though we had a program, I talked to somebody on the ground here. Hey, we want to do this. We're going to set up. Are you familiar with the program? In one case, we didn't ask. We went to a place out in New Hampshire. Hundreds of hams have been there all year. Figured, yeah, we don't have to ask. They're used to us and whatever. And they got mad at us because we set up in the wrong parking lot. They almost threw us out. We had to kind of grease the skids a little bit, give them a little money, and then they were happy. But when you're doing this, sell the idea of ham radio. Why this is a benefit for them. People are going to gather around. It's going to be an event. It's going to be fun. But don't get bogged down in minutia. Well, I'm going to put up this antenna. It's going to be 30 meters high by 20 meters long, and I'm going to have all this equipment. I have a radio about yay big, and I have a wire. That's it. If they want more information, give it to them. Don't offer it, because you start mentioning all this stuff, people's heads are going to spin and they're going to get scared of you, as rightfully they should be. So that's why. And sometimes they're going to say no. There was a national park unit down in New York, the Tenement Museum. I said, wow, this is great. You know, my ancestors came through here at one point many, many years ago. And they were going to give me the keys to the city, the whole thing. Were going to let me set up an antenna on the roof. On the roof! I says, this is too good to be true. And they asked me about the ARL, and they looked at the ARL and says, this isn't part of the National Park Service. I says, no, we're kind of like doing this with them. No, we don't want you. And they were just adamant. No, you can't come here. That was one park that just did not really get activated. So the other part of homework is recon. Go there and check it out. See what's going on. Take stock of the site. Where are the trees, the poles, the structures which will hold your antennas? And notice I didn't say, like on the back of your car, because we'll get to that in a minute. You want to put something up there that's going to work. Where's the station going to be? Is it going to be near enough to your antennas? Where will the public be? Are they going to be in harm's way? So these are all the things you want to do. So what if I cannot get to the site ahead of time? What do? A couple of my sites, I went sight unseen, almost. You Google it. You go to Google Earth or just plain Google Maps. You type in the name of the place and you click Maps on the Google search page and you'll see a map. And then you hit the satellite and just zero in, and you can actually see a picture of where it is you're going to be. And what I'm looking for is trees and buildings and stuff in the way, and where I can position my car, because that's usually going to be my shack. Then you can go, they have a feature with a ground view where you can have the perspective standing on the ground and you can see about how high those trees are. So, to give you an example, I went to the Women's Rights National Historical Park in Seneca Falls, New York. Anyone ever been to there? Well, yeah, the POTA guys, of course, right? Now, this was an interesting story. I went there with my wife to visit a relative of hers in Ithaca. And of course, I said, why don't we do this on the 24th of September? Why that date? It just seemed to be a good date. She should know me by now. That was the 23rd, but the very next day, why did I want to go that day? It was the Elmira Hamfest. I'd never been to it. Elmira, New York. It's actually the biggest hamfest in New York State, I found out. I've never been to it. I've heard stories about it, but it's always too far. Like 6.5 hours from here. It's like, an ungodly trip. I'm going to be right in the neighborhood. And then I noticed, oh my God, there's a national park 30 miles up the road. I'll put that on. So then I had a plan how to fit in relatives and a hamfest and a national park all in one day. This is the work of insane people. So I looked at this Women's Rights Park, and you can see here, this is where the building is. This is the big museum. This is the main drag, Route 5. And they kind of directed me, we have this nice open field here we can operate from. There's like water fountains here and little statues. But the problem is, I can't put my car in there. My car is where the radio is. I don't do backpacks and stuff. I'm too old for that stuff. It's got to be in the car. So this isn't going to work for me. But here's their parking lot. What do you see in that parking lot?
Trees.
Trees. Look at these trees right up here. There's trees. And, they didn't look that high. They looked at them, they look about 20, 25 feet. That's all I need for what I'm doing. So I'm going to show you a view now looking from this building, looking out towards that house there. This is what it really looked like when I got on site. Okay, this is the car. It's not my van because we're using my wife's car, and I had to actually make the radio work in her car. There's that house we looked at. Here's the tree. And you can see the wire here running in there. Not very high. 15 feet. It was as high as I can get it, throwing a rock through the tree and trying not to be noticed. Because, stealth is kind of, what are you doing there, kid? Just throwing this rock in the tree, not doing anything. I got a 40-meter dipole up in there. Okay, I did measure from the map. It had 65 feet to get it in there. I said, okay. And that 40-meter dipole was also, through a tuner, used on 20 meters. Another example, this is the Lowell National Historic Park in Lowell, Mass. And I had to do something in New Hampshire that day, so I figured, let's take a run down to Lowell. And it's all over Lowell, actually, but their headquarters is right up off the map. But this is their parking area. It's shared with the city. It's kind of these things where you park in there and you get a ticket and they validate it. And I'm looking in here and it says, oh look, trees. And this is a canal. Oh good, a nice ground plane for me. So I said, okay, I'll park somewhere in there, and I decided to bring my own mast because I didn't know how it would be to get things in and out of the tree. Sometimes it takes a lot of time to get the rock in there. So this is what I did. This is look now across the canal. I put my 25-foot mast. It's like on a little platform, and I just drive over it, holds it in place. And there's a dipole coming off of it, running right along the canal. And I also brought my generator and amp. I didn't ask him, I didn't mention this. I just said, I'm just going to play ham radio out there. And I said, it's a city park. I don't know, will I get away with this? He says, let me get on and work a lot of people really fast before they throw my butt out of here. And it worked. There's a generator sitting right there, so they couldn't really hear it. It was very noisy. It's a city. I had the big amp in there running, and 500 contacts in 4 hours, including Japan on 40 meters. So this thing was playing. Yes?
It is better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah. I was ready to grovel just in case. You know what? No one ever came out and looked. There was probably a lot more suspicious things going on in that parking lot. So plan the operation. Big question number one, before you go anywhere. What bands, what antennas, what power level shall be used? I didn't always use the amp. I didn't always use the generator. Some places you just couldn't do it. So you have to plan it out, how you're going to do this. So I throw this in there as kind of an aside. It's funny, you know, STER'S laws of antennas, which supersedes Maxwell's. The first thing is there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. The larger antenna, if it's designed right, will work better than the small antenna. Okay, the full-size dipole up in the air is going to work better than the little vertical on the tripod. It's just the way it is. Now, I mean, yeah, you'll win some battles with the little antenna, but you'll win more battles with the bigger antenna. The other thing is, who cares about SWR? Make sure you have a tuner. Okay, the tuner will tune the antenna if you know the SWR, so you're not waiting to have to sit there. Oh, the SWR is not right. You just have to sit there in the parking lot trimming the antenna so it works. You don't want to do that. And location always beats any antenna. So make sure that you know you're in whatever place you're setting up, but pick the right place there, away from structures and metal and whatever. So your mentality, this is important. Don't aim for mediocrity. You may just meet your goal. Do you really want that? You want to really put up the best station you can physically put up. And what I mean by that, physically put up, yeah, I'd love to have a Yagi too. But am I ready, willing, and able to put up the Yagi like the one you see outside by myself? Now, I have put that antenna up by myself in my house. I can do that on my mast. But in a portable place where time is of the essence, bad plan. So I go away from that. And this is another thing, I came up with this whole thing. Don't engage in discrimination. Everyone tells us discrimination is bad, right? Unless you're an FM receiver. I'm supposed to laugh. Hey. You know, if you run poor antenna and low power, it will guarantee you'll discriminate against small stations. If you're running a small little station, the big guys will work you. They'll make it your business to work you. They'll click on the amplifiers, have those big beams where the whole neighborhood rotates. They'll find you. The little guy with 100 watts to a dipole, he ain't going to hear you. You've basically cut them out of the picture. And I know this because I hear people, you know, during the national parks things, I hear people on. I didn't hear him on. I saw him spotted. I couldn't hear him. Couldn't hear him at all. I should have. I didn't. So you're doing this not for your own gratification. You're doing this to have other people work you. So you think of the guy who all he's got is a little wire in his house. Is he going to hear you? So here's the thing. Learn your antennas. This is something that's important. This is going to kind of go a little bit against what Sean said, but we'll have some fun with it because that's what we're here to do. So, you've heard of the hustler, right? What's a hustler?
Me.
Huh? Me. You're almost correct. Someone who knows how to get money from others. What about a buddy pole? Anyone use buddy poles? What's a buddy pole?
Simple. Metallic.
Your best pal in SP land. You guys know where SP land is?
No.
SP is pole.
What?
Taking them a while here, but they're getting right into it. Yeah, okay. Ham stick. How do you use a ham stick? It's a stick used to keep hams away from normal people. And finally, a tripod. What's a tripod used for? There's one right back there. Notice what's on that tripod is a camera, not an antenna. Okay, keep these things in mind. Now, these antennas are really valuable for certain reasons. Like when you're mobile, I'm not going to trail a 40-meter dipole behind me as I'm driving down 89. I've thought about it, but I'm not going to do it. Okay? Or if you happen to do a de-expedition to the moon, there's no trees there, or any place like that. If there's no trees and you're sitting on top of a rock, yeah, you're going to have to do one of these things. I just choose to not go to those places. If I can't drive to it, I'm not too interested. But you know, that's just a personal preference. But if you have some other way to deploy an antenna, deploy the better antenna. You'll work more people, have more fun, and other people have more fun working you. So learn your propagation. This was a very frustrating thing as a chaser. If you live on 20 meters, you will discriminate against everyone within 600 miles. The way this works is skip zone. You take 600 miles around your point, everyone in that circle, unless the guy is like a mile away or whatever, will not work you. They won't even hear you. They are cut out of the picture. There was a guy who would operate from Springfield every week. The Springfield Army, I guess that was a national site, whatever. 14313 every week. Never come off that band. Couldn't hear him. There's no way. Maybe he had a big station with a beam, maybe, but no, could not hear him. He discriminated against me and everyone else in New England. Okay, bad plan. So you want to make sure that you use the lower bands to pick up people closer in. And we put that in place here. We used to only operate 20 here at HamCon. We said, let's put 40-meter dipoles so we can work people on New England too, because they get left out of the picture. But even 40 meters goes long late in the afternoon. Even 40 meters will skip over people. So then you might have to think about 80 meters. Now 80 meters is a tall order when you're doing portable. Okay, so one of the things is operate earlier in the day. And if you're going to operate at night, you have to think about how you can get on 80 meters of some of those bands where you can get people closer in. Where we are in the sunspot cycle, 10 and 15 meters are just out of the equation. Don't even bother with it. I mean, even if it opens, you really need to have a pretty good station. So it's too bad. When 10 meters was great, it was great. Check back with me in another 4 or 5 years on those bands. So if you want to effectively cover the U.S. during the daytime, this is what you shoot it for. 40 meters for the close-in stuff, and 40 meters during the day is high-angle skip. You want an antenna that maximizes high angles. A low dipole, 25 to 33 feet, that's what does it. Radiates straight up. It's great for working New England, out to Ohio, and the way 40 meters has been lately, it actually goes a lot further than that. A vertical is horrible for that. Vertical does not radiate straight up, it radiates out. Vertical is good for DX. You don't want to work DX on 40 meters. Not until maybe later in the day you want to work the guys close in. And I'll hear guys mobile, and I won't hear them again. I'll see them spotted. I'll hear people working them further away, but I can't hear them. Okay? They're basically skipping over me. Use 20 meters for the contacts 600 to 2,500 miles away. Okay, for the rest of the country. 20 meters to the U.S. is medium to low skip. Okay, moderately high dipole, like 33 feet is good. So is a vertical with a good ground system. With a good ground system. You know, if something's just stuck in the ground, that's not going to get it done. So 20 meters, you have a little bit of a choice there, but you have to make that choice wisely. If you want to do this at night, this gets a whole lot harder. Particularly where we are in the sunspot cycle. You have to be on the low bands. You have to be on 80 meters. 80 meters is tough to do. It's 135 feet of wire. Even if you shorten it a little bit, you can't shorten it that much before your efficiency starts taking a hit. So, you know, 50-foot high dipole, yeah, I have that at home, but, you know, portable, tough to do. 40 meters better, but again, 40 meters is not a friendly band at night. You know, really good power and a good antenna is what we're going to need. And summer months, terrible. I'll tell you, I got on 160 meters last night at 9 o'clock with a contest going on. It was horrendous, you know, with the warm weather now, the static rashes come in. Well, I had to struggle to work people in New Hampshire for crying out loud. It was hard. I operated for an hour and shut it off, which is good because that way I did other things which I had to do to prepare for today.
Make the presentation for today.
Yeah, write the presentation. Yeah, I did the operating first, then I did the presentation.
Priorities.
So, plan your setup. Where will the antenna go? Okay, you looked at the site, or you looked at the picture of the site. Now what are you going to do with your antenna? Now you got some choices. Hanging from the trees. Well, if you're in like a traditional park with high trees, you've got it made. You've got all these trees to put up. Strung from a building. Well, you got to check on that now. I mean, first of all, if you string it from a building, you got to string the end to the building. You don't want to string the middle of the antenna to the building because the building will affect it. On your own mast that you brought, like you saw in that picture, or on a local structure like a telephone pole or something that you can get up on, or any combination of the above. And there may be more possibilities too, but those are the basic ideas of where the antenna will go. And before you actually go there, you look at this and decide, how are we going to do this? Because you have to know that to know what to bring. Where will the station go? On a card table outside. Well, that's great. That gives you maximum exposure to the public, which may or may not be a good thing. I don't really like dealing with the public. I'm kind of, you know, social misfit and whatever on a ham. Some people like that. The other problem is you got changeable weather. You're sitting out there and it starts to rain, or the wind starts blowing, whatever, and you got to start, holding everything down so it don't blow away. Or maybe in a car tent, inside a tent, or a portable shelter. A little bit better, gives you a little bit of protection against the elements. Or in a vehicle, which we like to do when it's cold out. But the big question that we ran into is, will the operator fit? We got the equipment in there okay, the operator didn't fit so well. In a building, if they give you a building, or sitting on the ground, I'll show you a picture of that. And you say, what do you mean sitting on the ground? No, literally sitting on the ground. You do what you got to do. Where's your power going to come from? 120 volt power available. So one of the sites I went to in New York City, I said, would you mind if I plug my extension cord in? Sure, go ahead. Great, don't have to mess with batteries, right? Okay, if you bring a battery, is it enough to power a radio plus the computer for hours? And what do you guys mention the battery, the lithium, whatever? The LiPo battery, yes. Pete had one of those. Great. I had my little gel cells, and I transmit, the voltage would drop way down and go dead in 15 minutes. It wasn't all that good. Vehicle, okay, so you can operate out of your car vehicle, but don't run your battery down, or you're going to be staying portable for a lot longer than you bargained for. Okay, when I operate portable like that, I have my voltmeter, and I'm watching it like a hawk. When it drops below about 12.4, I run the engine. I'm running the engine a lot. Or a generator. One of those little Honda 2,000 watt generators. Those things are great. They're quiet and basically run all day on a tank of gas. If you can get away with that, you can carry that to wherever you need to be. Great. What other equipment is necessary? A laptop for logging. For the love of God, don't log, people log. Please, please, please don't do that. I ran into a lot of national park people logging on a paper log. And then you hear them say, well, I got to transcribe the log. What? I mean, really, this is like 2000s. I did that back in 1970. Yes, this is true. Don't do that, because when you do that, first of all, you make more errors as you're transcribing it. You got to sit there with the papers blowing around. Everyone's got a laptop. I have a little netbook I carry with me. You can do that, and you can see what's going on. Headphones, a must. Somebody posted a YouTube video, W3, went to a park here in New Hampshire. It was more comedy routine than national park video. He sits there and he's operating. He's got his little buddy pole and his QRP thing, and he's having fun. And all these Girl Scouts come off of a bus, and they're all having lunch there and making all this noise. And he doesn't have the headphones. And then to top it off, 20 minutes later, the big lawn tractor comes by and starts cutting the grass. He didn't have headphones. Bad plan. Okay, so make sure you have the headphones, because you're going to need it at times. Bring the tuner with you. Keeps from worrying about SWR. I forgot the tuner for the station next door. So 40 meters was a little tough. Bring a key or a keyer. If you're on low power, you will operate CW. You really do need to do it, particularly if your antenna's kind of weak. CW does make it work a lot better. You have to know it, of course. I actually opted for the straight key most of the time, because I can hold 15, 20 words a minute on a straight key pretty easily, and there's nothing to really break with a straight key. Not much to go wrong. And then finally, the amplifier, which sometimes you can get away with, sometimes you can't. It does make a big, big difference. Like to the tune of maybe doubling the number of QSOs I make. That kind of difference. Because more people hear you. More people hear you, they spot you, they talk about you, everyone starts piling on. It's great. Of course, if you're using an amplifier and you generate a big pileup, make sure you can deal with said pileup. Yeah?
Would you use 400 watts or go?
Yes, I use an SP200, 500 watts, so you don't need the full kilowatt. Bob has the little KPA amplifier from Elecraft, 500 watts, and it's solid state. Doesn't make any noise, okay? Anything in that category. And you've got to run off of 120 also, because I don't have 240 volts available. So before you go, just like Santa Claus, make a list, check it twice, check it 3 times, check it more, because like Sean said, you get to the site, you forget a key piece of equipment, there ain't no Radio Shack down the road to bail you out. Yeah.
Set it up on the back porch before you leave.
We're going to get to that. It's right in
Don't
here.
forget anything.
Build your mock station at home and operate it. I do this every year at field day. I've been doing field day for 40 plus years, whatever. I take all my equipment out of the shack that I'm going to use. I set up a table in my living room, and I build a field day station and put it on the air. And if something is missing, I know it right away. And that's even having a list, but I still do that just to make sure it's all there. If using a mast setup, set it up at home. Actually do the deployment at home. Put the mast up, see if it works. You know, make sure it goes up efficiently. If something is stuck or whatever, or problematic, fix it before you get on site. Bring spares, spare antenna, spare coax, connectors, even equipment if you can. Okay, Murphy's laws still apply to all of this. And big thing is safety. Make sure no one can trip or get tangled in your wires, and make sure nothing can fall down on people, which I did have happen actually. I had a pedestrian get tangled up on a wire. It was pretty funny. Hold on, I got to rescue somebody. Didn't plan it that way, but you know, sometimes the wind takes your stuff down. Then we have non-technical logistics. Plan your timeline. What's your travel time to the site? What's the setup time? At least an hour. Okay, if you lose your timeline and you wanted to be on at, let's say, 10, 11 o'clock, and instead you get on at 1 or 2 o'clock, you've lost a lot of valuable operating time. And if you're playing in the late season, where it gets dark early, you're shut off, okay? Unless you want to stay out late at night. So be sure to be on at the best times. You know, the Statue of Liberty operation, they only allowed hams to operate there at like 8 in the morning. 8 in the morning is not a good time to work the U.S. on any band. Okay, it was really, really tough, but they didn't have a choice in it. Make sure you plan your takedown time to assure it gets done before it gets dark out. So when we did an activation in December, it gets dark at 4:15. We had to basically at 4:10 we pulled the plug and pulled everything down like really quick and got out of there because it was like 11 degrees or something out there. It wasn't really a fun place to be. Yeah, and people talk about winter field days. Yeah, right.
Question.
Yes.
Does snow make for a good reflector?
Not that I found.
Okay.
I don't work any more DX in the winter than I do in the summer. What else you'll need? You're going to need food, unless you're one of these guys that can operate and fast at the same time. If you're on from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., you're going to need to eat and drink. Okay, at least something. And clothing, if you have winter, late fall operations, it will get cold. Like I said, we had an 11-degree operation. I was operating outside in New York City where it was 50 degrees with the breeze coming through. Another time I was there, it was 30 degrees and it was raining. And I had about 4 sweatshirts on because I knew that was just going to be uncomfortable. Auxiliary planning. If you're in an urban area, parking is crucial. Like all those ones I did in Manhattan, the big question is, where am I going to put the car? No, I'm not taking my backpack with my radios on the subway. That was out. That's not fun. I rode the subway for 4 years going to school. What did I learn in school? I don't want to do that no more. I ride trains and I was a rail fan, not to get somewhere. So where do you find parking? And so you plan that out, you know, where the parking places are, where the garages, wherever, so I know just what to do. Is the area safe or will you need protection? Well, I don't know. And what kind of protection? I don't know that either. I know when I was in Lowell, I operated past dark. And I wasn't quite sure about that neighborhood. I said, yeah, is this a good place for me to be? I didn't know. But, you know, again, the thrill of DX trumps all others. And I had a pilot going, and that was the first order of business. So I kept doing that and worried about the problem. It was no problem at all. But, you know, sometimes you don't know. All right, how are we doing for time? Great. So we got some time here. So I'm going to show now some pictures of what some of this craziness looks like. These first pictures are going to be the club activations we did is W1NBT. It's our club call. These were all at regular parks or natural river sites. They were easy to set up. We had big trees there. All we need to do is bring our rocket launcher to launch the ball over the thing. We had 2 stations on 20 and 40 meters. And if you're going to do something like that, 2 bands or multiple stations, you then have to think about keeping them the requisite space apart so they don't bother each other. And I was a stickler. No, this has to be here and that has to be there. I don't want the two stations talking to one another. And I kind of have a pretty good idea of what I need for space, and you keep the antennas at right angles or end to end so that we don't bother each other. And all these things are running 500 watts to dipoles at around 40 plus feet. So this is an activation. This is the first activation we did. We didn't know what we were doing, but we still did really well. This was at the Missisquoi Natural River Site. It's up at Davis Park in Richford, Vermont. This is about as far north you can get into Vermont without being a VE2. That's how far up it is. And this is done field day style. We got a tent going here, a table. The K3 you can't see is behind the computer. This is the SB200 amp, the big Heathkit tuner. I mean, we came to play here. There's no doubt about it. Now, while this was going on, and this is Tim and Larry doing the operating. While this was going on, across the park, okay, there's the tent over there. There's Carl operating the 40-meter station. We pressed a gazebo into service for that. And no problems with bugs or anything or rain. It was a really nice day, but it was a good setup. We had our own little table there to use. It worked well. This setup was a couple of months later at a place called Marsh Billings Rockefeller National Historical Parks in Woodstock, Vermont. I didn't know we had national parks in Vermont. This is the one. And this one, it was kind of more of a cooler fall day. You see, Bob's wearing a jacket. I think he was actually wearing long pants, so that tells you it was a cold day, because he normally be in shorts. Right? And so this is set up in the back of my van. Now, I normally operate this way when I do the VHF QSO party. The problem with this is everything worked well. Got the radio there, the amp. This is the same laptop I'm using here to log and everything. I brought the keyer with me, which didn't get used. And the reason why it didn't get used is because we got on 20 meters. We go CQ, National Parks on the air. Guy called us, and the pileup continued for the next 4.5 hours. Didn't need to do CW. We were working, the first hour we worked like 170 people. Serious stuff. The problem is Bob did not fit in the van. Bob was a little longer this way than that way or whatever, and his head was hitting the roof, and they complaining about back spasms and all this complaints. And I'm trying to worry about getting the logs in, he's complaining about his back. But anyway, this was a problem we had to resolve. We moved things around in future visits. This is the 40-meter station. Now this we set up in a little shelter. This is like a 3-sided tent, because it was a little drizzly that day, so we wanted to keep the rain off the equipment. You can see another K3. So yeah, we use pretty good radios. K3s, the amplifiers over here, which you can't see. And we had at it. It worked really well. How do you get the antenna in the trees? We use this thing called a compressed air launcher. Sometimes we call it a rocket launcher. This is Bob shooting it off. You see the smoke and the gases being emitted. Makes for a nice picture. And it launches the ball. I've launched the ball as much as high as 80 feet into the air with this thing. Okay, it works really well. You put the line over the tree, haul the dipole up. If you're good, you hit your mark, you can get a dipole up inside of 10-15 minutes. And there's the end result. That's the 40-meter dipole. Just the dipole. I mean, the big pileups was because of that wire. Don't need anything really fancy or whatever. How much did this wire cost to make? Nothing. It was a pile of wire I had lying around the garage.
And you use it on 20 as well?
Oh, this was a 40. We put up a separate 40 and 20. And other times I put up a 40 and tune it down to 20, use it as a one wavelength wire. Now, this is the Lamprey River. When we went to Nearfest, how many have been to Nearfest? Okay, so you all know what I'm talking about. We went to Nearfest and I realized, oh my God, there's a park right down the street. We have to activate it. What do you mean activate it? We're doing Nearfest. And when we're done with Nearfest, we'll leave a little earlier and we'll go there and put the park on the air. And this is exactly what it did. This was what you call the picture-perfect fall day. That's why we're outside. Normally I wouldn't set stuff up outside, but I said, we can do this. That's the Lamprey River right here. You walk 10 feet that way, you go swimming. So we had a kind of, well, we weren't really walking around a lot, we were operating. This is Paul operating. So yeah, there's the K3, there's the twin. The amp is underneath because I didn't think the card table would hold it up very well. And this was another one. CQ, W1 NVT, massive pileup. And we had a lot of DX that day. It was just absolutely insane the whole time. It was fun. I love that kind of stuff. So you say, oh, I don't want a big pileup. I can't deal with it. Oh man, bring it on. There's no pileup that's too big for me. I just let you know. What if you can't hear anyone? Just wait a minute. You'll hear somebody. Eventually somebody will break through. You know, don't worry about it. So that's the 20-meter station. Now over the 40-meter station, there's Bob operating. Now, so which is more colorful? It looks better on my screen than there. Which is more colorful, the foliage or Bob's shirt and cap? Okay, now this was, Bob WXM didn't come with us, so we had a backup station. This is Rich gave me one of my TO's Yaesu that he bought that day at Nearfest. And this is Paul's big amp. It looks impressive. That's a big amp. I think we were running 800 watts that day. But Bob, or all of us, forgot the most key ingredient. What's missing? No headphones. Oh, we don't have no headphones. I think they had headphones, but they didn't fit into that radio. I forget what it was. I don't know. What do we do? We have no headphones. Turn the volume louder. That's what you can do. And there's the antenna. That's the 20-meter dipole, well above those trees, by the way, over at the lamprey. This site, this was, now we're getting into October, late October. And this is the Saint Gaudens site in Cornish, New Hampshire, just over the border from Vermont. And we went in there and we didn't ask permission. We just kind of said, well, everyone's been here, what the hell? Well, they were kind of mad. We were taking up 3 parking spots in their lot. They really wanted us over in the other lot. We didn't know that. And that was the mistake we made. We should have really checked with them. So we just paid admissions. Well, make believe that we're just visiting here. Okay. So Bob and Rich parked here, and the station is just under this little tarp, and there's the tent. Well, that's what they did. I wouldn't have any hear that. If you see in the operating picture, this is Rich, and that's Doug, N6PRT. He's from California most of the year. You see, he looks like he's all bundled up there, ready to go. It was a little chilly that day. Okay, here I am. I don't know if you can see me. I kind of like to be a shadowy character in the back of the van there, right? It's nice and warm there, and when it got cold, I just started to heat the engine up, ran the heat a little bit. This was our last hurrah. This was a mid-December activation. We went back to the Missisquoi. And we weren't going to do no tents. It was 11 degrees when we started there. It was downright cold. This is Bob operating my van. You can see the snow out there. So that's real snow. That's not there for effect. I did bring the Kier. Again, we didn't use it. We had a massive pileup the whole time. And in fact, I said to the world, we're going to break 1,000 QSOs. Because at that time, the National Parks program was nearing 1 million QSOs, and we wanted to give it that push to make sure we went over. So we're going to make 1,000 QSOs in this activation. The average activation was about 60. When you take all the QSOs and all the activations, because a lot of guys go there, they make 10 QSOs, all right, that's fine, I'm going home, you know, that sort of thing. We actually ended up with 1,250. Okay, massive pileups on both vans. So this is my van. We turned the table around so the other Bob would fit in there okay without complaints. And then Bob set up his car, took the back seat out, and put this makeshift table in here. And Rich is doing the operating, or he's stretching his knuckles, I'm not sure what. The equipment's kind of over on the left, so it's a little weird, but you know, you really don't need to look at the equipment. If you're running a pileup, there's nothing to really tune. You're just sitting there typing the whole time. And he actually had an electric heater. We had 2 generators, one to run the radio, one to run the heat. So you know, it's not really trying to save gas type of thing. And there's the dipole we had up there. This dipole was pretty high up. So now these next ones are the single activations I did. And by the way, I only did a total of 11 activations. I mean, as activators go, I'm right at the dead bottom of the list. First of all, we don't have any national parks in this state. I mean, it's not like, you know, the guys down like in Maryland, where, you know, you wake up and walk out of your house and trip over a park wherever you go. Here, they're few and far between. And I was looking for more of a quantity type of activation instead of, more activations. So these are single stations, single 40-meter dipole, usually around 100 watts. This is at Gateway National Recreation Area. It's in Floyd Bennett Field. This is where I grew up. We used to do field day here, years and years ago, right at this very spot, right? This is the runway. The runways are still there. I knew there was not much in the way of trees, and so I brought my big 25-foot mast, and there's the dipole hanging up. I actually had it backstayed because the wind was really whipping. There was like a hurricane offshore that day, so we had to kind of be careful, but right on the water. I mean, this is great ground screen type of stuff here. All right, and there's a station. Now I didn't bring the yellow craft for this one. This is pretty pedestrian. This is my little Linko, and there's my little netbook. There's the VOM measuring the voltage, because I wanted to make sure I could get out of there at the end of the day. This is the Lowell site that we showed you earlier from a different viewpoint, looking north down the canal. Okay, you see all these mill buildings around. If I turn around and shoot the other way, I see this thing. And when I went there, I stared at it and stared at it. How can I get something off the top of that sucker? But of course, I look like I'm higher than it from this vantage point. But I said, I'll just go with what I got here. This is the Hamilton Grange. Hamilton Grange this is Alexander Hamilton's house. It's in Harlem. Now, even though I grew up in New York City, we didn't go to Harlem. It wasn't a place you go to. It was like you go there for jazz clubs and to get mugged. And I wasn't interested in either of those growing up. And I was really kind of scared going there. And they said, no, it's okay. And they said, you can bring it inside our driveway. Cool. I'm there, dude. And so I came right in the driveway here. This is behind the fence. You can see a little bit of my mast going up. That's the house here. Big problem, a lot of pedestrians walking by, so I had to make sure that all the cabling and everything was right so that nobody got hung up. There's a view looking from the house. You can see the dipole up there. Big church across the street. This is City University of New York City College. And we're actually on a little hill sloping east. If I wanted to work DX, which I really didn't. But it was kind of nice. I was in Harlem the whole time I'm putting up the antenna. I was singing Take the A Train, like Duke Ellington, because it talks about Harlem and everything. It was kind of a fun day. So now these next things are from the ridiculous parks. The places where it's like absolutely insane to operate from. And these parks are ones that didn't get activated very much. Okay, and the people who did do the activation, it was kind of like the hamstick buddy pole types of thing. They worked 20 people and called it a day, if that. So these required a lot of thinking. You have to be certifiably crazy to do these. I mean, I'll make no mistake about it. This is the one at the women's rights thing. Again, this wasn't too bad, actually, because this wasn't in New York City. This is the setup in the front of Debbie's car. I don't think she's seen this picture. She'd probably scream if she did. But yeah, I just kind of tossed the stuff in the car and had at it. I only had an hour, okay, with all the things I was doing that day, so I only got maybe 60 Qs in on it. That was one of my lowest activations. This is the Gay Rights Liberation National Park. It's a new national park that they think they made this year. So this is the Stonewall Inn. This is where they had that big riot there in 1969. And then that's privacy. First thing I asked about, can I get on the roof? Of course, the roof isn't very useful. Big buildings right next to it. But this is Christopher Park, and I found this gate here, and I found a tree over here and a tree over there. And I had to throw the rock over the tree, a little rock to throw it. I didn't want to use my launcher, not in the middle of the city. But I had to wait for the light to change a certain way because I'm throwing the rock like into like West 4th Street, right over the subway station, make sure that nobody kind of like sneaks across the light against the red. But here's the dipole right here, and how good did I get out from here? Well, as you can see, not very well. I'm surrounded by 15-story buildings. Not only that, it was an S9 noise level everywhere. What did you say? What did you say? And so CW was the main mode I was using. And here's the setup. Here's the glorious thing. I'm not that much for neatness in setting up station. I basically took it, tossed it on the ground. There's my chair, and there's the battery. The tuner is holding up the radio, the watt meter, the thing. I mean, the whole time I'm there, I mean, this looks pretty weird and everything. Nobody bothered to ask me what I was doing. But, you know, this is Greenwich Village. You know, weird is the norm there, so I figured out I'll just fit right in with everybody else. This was the worst activation. This is the Theodore Roosevelt birthplace. It's a brownstone on 20th Street in Manhattan. Okay, and this is the one I talked him into letting me throw a wire out the third-story window. That's right above the flagpole. It comes down to here. I'm feeding it at the bottom, so it's like it's like an L. It comes down and then across. Now I thought about it after. I said maybe I should have fed it from the top, but it didn't matter. The noise level was about 20 over 9. What did you say? I mean, every contact was like 3 or 4 repeats, mostly CW. 20 was a little better. I even tried 30 meters. It was horrible. I coaxed 160 Qs out of this place. In 5 hours, I was exhausted. Oh, and my operating position was sitting on these stairs. They don't use this door. So, and now this is Gramercy Park in New York City. The whole time I'm there, people are getting out of cabs, you know, with the fur coats and the high heels and crap like that. And there I am sitting there hunched over the radio. You had to see it to love it, you know. I mean, I was just sitting there laughing my butt off, you know. Having fun. That's what we do. You might have heard the term concrete canyons of New York City. This is what we're referring to. The street and sidewalk are 50 feet wide and 500 feet up. Well, maybe not that high, maybe 300 feet up. Okay, now looking west down 20th Street, we're looking towards roughly Washington State. But by the rules of the national parks, I couldn't really put the antenna across the street. I had to be on the property, which was right in the building, right against the building. If I wanted to talk to Florida, I had to go right through the building, and so there weren't too many people from Florida in the lot, obviously. So tough place to operate from. To be honest, you know, about 3 hours into it, I said, are we having fun yet? And I'm not so sure. This is the last one I did. This is the craziest one by far. This was at, anyone recognize this place? Well, this is the federal building on Wall Street. And that's the statue of Washington. Washington was sworn in as the first president, right here. Okay, he's still standing there. How do we get, now it was activated before, and I actually did this with another activator, K0BAK, Pete, who's like big activator, because I didn't think I could do this alone. First of all, the place is crawling with people. And the last thing I need is people like wandering around me when I'm putting up an antenna. And then it was like a really rainy day. This was December 24th we did this. But I did the recon, I was there, I took pictures, I saw pictures and whatever, and I came up with an antenna which I thought would work. Can you see the antenna? Okay, so this little thing in back of Washington is not part of the statue. That was added for that. I was going to hang it from his arm here. That was the first plan, but I realized the statue is metal and I would have some SWR issues. And also I really, you know, people come in here and take pictures of this thing all day long. I didn't want the antenna to be front and center, so I stuck it in the back. So, and my operating position, I wanted to be on the steps, but it was raining, so it was like back under here. And I wasn't too worried about them throwing us out because there was a homeless guy living over here. In fact, you can see him there. They didn't throw him out either. And I figured we were in good company, right? So this is looking from the back of Washington. There's the pole. It's kind of like in back. It's strapped on the bottom. There's a little tripod. It's kind of bending over. That's the stock exchange. I don't know if Sean has seen this picture. This is about, and when Pete, who's done like hundreds of activations and whatever, he says you're incredible, Mitch. I have never seen anyone do something this crazy. I don't think I have either, actually. I'm glad I pulled up. A block captain stopped and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, this is ham radio." He said, "Do you have permission?" I said, "Actually, yeah." I talked to the woman. She said, "We're closed on Sunday. You know, it's a public place. Go ahead." I said, "Okay." Never saw a cop there. The day before, we're in Midtown. I saw cops fingering Uzis and Thompson machine guns and whatever. I didn't even want to be there. Here, nothing. So, go figure, whatever. And there I am operating. This is what it looks like. This is not comfortable. My back was talking to me after this, but I actually didn't bring a pad to sit on. I planned that. I also brought a bottle with me, not with water in it, but to put something in it, because in Manhattan, finding bathrooms can be very difficult. Fortunately, we identified some likely places really quick that way. But we did a lot of CW. It actually didn't have much noise. A lot of CW. This is a shot of me handling the straight key. The radio's under there. There's my netbook, the tuner, and that's Pete's battery, which really worked well. And Pete had another station on 20 meters using his hamstick, which he did really well with, actually. But he was ready to throw in the towel. It was really cold. I'm wearing about 6 sweaters underneath that and everything. And so finally we said, the laptop gave up. The battery died. And I would have went back to the car and got a piece of paper to log in and said, you know what? I think we proved our point. 240 Qs from a very, very difficult spot. So, the summary in setting up a station. An effective ham station can be built anywhere. You've seen this. And like I said, all these activations, well over hundreds of contacts. But you need to do your homework. Do the contact, do the recon, the research, the plan. Don't settle for a poor antenna and a poor station. Don't just drive into somewhere with the thing off the back of your car. That's for mobile stuff. Really put up a good antenna. Use every possible allowable advantage to increase your signal. Okay, dipole in the clear is probably your best all-around choice if you get away with it. But be a stickler for safety. Yours and the public. And have fun. That's what all this is about. Thank you very much. Have a great time.
Thank you.